So I have no choice but to deviate from my normal topics that I usually talk about that are controversial and piss people off and are usually conspiratorial or religious in nature because I do these little trivia things on Facebook where I would share a picture of a person, place, or thing, and I would ask the my friends to try to guess where it's located without using Google or something like that. And then I would have like a little prize if they won, like send them $5 or other things, and it's stupid and silly, and I don't care. But my friend Boris, the Emperor of Brooklyn, so if you ever need anything in Brooklyn, Boris will provide anything that you could possibly want. He has everything. So just come up to Boris and he'll give it to you. And he's the only Boris in Brooklyn, so you'll be able to find them. Having said that, my prize this time was they get to pick a topic for me to talk about on my little YouTube channel here. So he wanted me to talk about the differences between San Diego and New York and where I like it more. And which is odd because he himself has been here. He visited me and stayed here for a week in 2013. So he very well knows the differences between San Diego and New York. And he also knows how we got lost in Tijuana and how we weren't able to find the border and how we got pulled over by a motorcycle cop and bribed, and how when we finally did find the border, he missed his flight back to New York. And hey, but we had a great time. So I had a kind of a chaotic upbringing, unusual. I was born in Russia and I grew up speaking Russian, and I still speak Russian at home, even with my son, who was born in the States, and my wife, who is Ukrainian. And I lived there for a short time, and we emigrated to New York City, where we lived in Brooklyn with me and my mom and brother for 7 years, approximately, or about 7, 8 years. And my parents divorced, and my mom had friends in Tucson, Arizona, which is where she moved. And I subsequently ended up, me and my brother, moving with her. But over the years, I spent time moving back and forth between my mom and my dad in New York numerous times. So I would go to school out there and I would go to school in New York. And I ended up living a total of about 7 years in two different cities in Arizona. And then she moved to San Diego way back like in 2002 or 2003. And then that kind of process continued even all the way until college, where I moved back to New York for the last time from 2008 to 2010. And I went to college both out there and out here in San Diego. And so I have a very varied perspective and very good, kind of solid perspective to both places, seeing them kind of back and forth, the West and the East. And I also lived in Florida for a short time, but I'm not going to get into that. And I could tell you that overall, generally speaking, I like San Diego a lot more, significantly more than New York, um, because the beaches are stunningly beautiful. We have great cliffs, we have great hiking, we have dolphins and seals and um, and all kinds of marine species, and we have amazing views of the city, and we have great parks and great recreation and museums. And but not just that, I like the slower pace here, the mentality here, which is kind of more laid back and mellow and not so rushed and kind of agenda like, which is what I hated about New York. Was like, it seems like people's like main drive or main purpose was just to and I'm generalizing, of course, obviously. It's like to make as much money as possible and to show it off and flaunt it in front of everybody. And like, it was a very aggressive place, and a lot of the stereotypes are really true. The people there are pretty rude, and but then again, it's generalizing. It is. It's just a very in your face kind of place. And in some ways, that's good when you have people who are kind of real and upfront and honest with you instead of, kind of being sly and devious and things like that. But sometimes it was a little bit over the top. I mean, I almost got killed there a couple of times. Like, another but things I liked about New York was it had a lot of energy and vibrancy and a lot of movement. It was kind of you could feel the life of the city and the dynamic people that were there and the variety of every type of person you could possibly imagine, kind of like all molded into one. And I thought that that was beautiful, and I really liked using the public transportation too, not needing a car, using the subway. I used the subway, I used the bus, and I walked, and I did a lot of walking. It was very healthy, it was good. Probably walked miles in a day, and pretty much anything you wanted. Even though I lived in Brooklyn and not even in Manhattan, you didn't really have to go too far to get like almost anything you wanted. And then not having to worry about maintenance and insurance and car crashes and breakdowns and being dependent on a car was absolutely beautiful. I really loved Prospect Park and Central Park in New York, and of course the museums are absolutely incredible. The Guggenheim Museum, the Met, the Museum of Natural History, the planetarium are just. I've been to a bunch of places, and I've been to museums in all over the states and in Europe. And New York has really like a special type of museum culture. It's really cool, like the type of things they have on display. Um, and also the pizza. I've only found one place in San Diego that can recreate such pizza, and there's nothing like New York pizza. It's the best. Like, and I love pizza. It's like one of my favorite foods. And like I said, I've been to many places in San Diego, pizza places, and there's only one that can compare that I know of, or maybe two that are pretty close. But likewise, I could say about San Diego that San Diego's Mexican food is superior than anywhere, including LA, okay, including Mexico. And I've the two favorite types of Mexican I tried, everything here. In fact, I'm getting Mexican after work today. It's just too good not to eat at least once a week. And a very different type of Mexican flavor, but also really, really good Mexican food is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. That was kind of my second favorite place in terms of Latin foods. Um, but yeah, generally speaking, San Diego is where I would prefer to be. And even though I do kind of live in a boring square suburb, It's still a good place to raise a kid, and the beach is 3 miles away. And contrary to what many people think about California being this decaying, dying liberal hellhole, which is true in a lot of places, but where I am, um, there's a ton of conservatives, first off. It's a misconception that there aren't a lot. Basically, the further away from the beach you go in San Diego, the more conservative it gets. And some of these areas, these neighborhoods, you can't tell apart from freaking Texas with big trucks and cowboy hats and Trump flags and you name it. Like, and then you get to the beach and it's like there's a big divide. There's a really big gap between the liberals and conservatives here, but there's a large population of both. And another interesting thing about San Diego is that you have New York is pretty much all highly urbanized, um, really condensed and metropolis like, but San Diego has neighborhoods that are very, very urbanized, skyscrapers, kind of even with a New York vibe, fast paced, walking distance type things. And then there are areas that are completely rural with horses and ranches and farms, and they're still within the city limits. And I think that's an interesting dynamic. Um, but yeah, overall, I'm gonna have to say San Diego wins the day, and it's one of the best cities I've been to over half, probably like 30 states I've been to at least, and it still remains one of my favorite cities that I've been to in the States, and I'm really grateful to be living here. And if the end times birth apocalypse starts with tsunamis and volcanoes and earthquakes, then this is a great place to be swallowed up by a tsunami. I mean, what a great way to go.